Welcome into Trucker Talk Radio. You're on with J and J. I'm John. This is Justin. Today we are diving into Drivers First, where we don't just talk about trucking, we talk about the mastery behind the truck. Well, we got a master on with us now,
We
Daniel
do.
Kinsman. He can drive anything from a U-Haul to a straight truck, or U-Haul and a straight truck, pretty much the same
Right.
thing. A dry van, flatbed, and RGN, anything you got. So how you doing today, Daniel?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing
Doing
good.
great. Where are you calling us from?
I am calling you from the bright, bustling borough of Boardman, Ohio, where we might have the sun come out today. We might not. It's a toss-up.
So tell us about yourself. You are experienced and very experienced drivers. You haul basically any kind of shipment that's out there. Literally, if it's in a straight truck or if it's it's a heavy haul load. So tell us how you first got into trucking. What's kept you going? What company you're running for, and what you like to do for fun.
So, what got me into trucking is, well, I'm a third generation truck driver. My grandpa drove for about 2 years after World War II. Unbeknownst to most of the family, right when my mom was born, he just decided to get out of the truck and take a local job. Then my mom drove over the road. She drove for Crete. Started out at Covenant Transport as their first female trainer, and then she went to Crete and she homeschooled me in a truck. So
Oh wow.
that was
Oh, wow.
at 7 years old. I climbed into a FLA cabover, Freightliner cabover, and
And
sat
she
on the
homeschooled you from the truck.
That's pretty
homeschooled me
cool.
from the truck for
That's actually really, I mean, you got to see pretty much the whole country, I'm sure.
all 48 states and 4 provinces of Canada.
And probably you learned more of real world stuff, which I think is more important than book smart. Being out seeing things. I tell truck drivers all the time, hey, when you start out, go travel. Go, don't worry about having a family, having a home. Just live in your truck, go see the country. And then when you get 10 years into it, then start trying to find your local job and home and family so you're not missing out. So that had to be a pretty cool experience.
It was growing up like that. Like I said, we were in one of the last cabovers at the company that Crete had, and watching the whole industry transition from cabovers to conventionals, and the trucks getting bigger, stuff getting bigger. The shift, like the cabover we had, it actually didn't have a Quailcomm in it, so mom had to
Hmm.
stop and call when she got empty. Use a customer phone or a pay phone, call the company. They
Yeah.
put the Quailcomm in it, and then we had the truck for like another week, I think it was. And then they took us out of that and put us in a brand new FLD flat top, the Freightliner FLD. And they were just transitioning over to those. So going through the industry, being in it this long, that was in ooh, 1995.
Okay.
So that was a few years ago,
Oh,
31
so
years
there,
ago.
I mean, so you had pay phones. You may have had, cell phones weren't quite getting started yet. I think a little about 3 to 5 years later, that's when they started coming out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we got our first cell phone in like 2000-ish,
that's probably
Okay.
about right.
99, 2000.
Yeah, because about that time, beepers were just the new thing, and about 93, 94, beepers really started. So coming from that and seeing, because I've talked to some older truckers that, they would stop on a payphone and get their next three loads because they wasn't going to be near a payphone. If you didn't hit that payphone by a certain time, you wasn't getting any information because everybody went home. Explain the patience in that because if you come from that mindset of, hey, this is how it was done to, hey, now, kind of give a little bit more context in that for these drivers that just honestly bitch and complain about their dispatchers all the time because they're bugging them too much or they can't get them on the phone. Go into that just a little bit more comparison through your eyes.
The big change, and a lot of drivers would probably not believe this, is getting loads wasn't as difficult because like the trucks back then had a built-in, not just on the a radio, but they actually had their own clock. Up between the windshields, there's a clock that you could actually set, and we always ran that on Central Time. So you just knew, hey, by this time, dispatch is going to be leaving. Just give them a call. What really has changed a lot granted, GPS has made it nicer. It's customer directions. When you were running over the road,
That's right.
I
they
didn't
would
think
give you a
about
phone number and be like, "Hey, you got to call the customer.
Yep.
You don't know how to get in, and
that's
you might
true. I
not
didn't
have
even
some
think
of the."
about that.
I
I
remember the one
forgot about that.
customer.
I started at a large brokerage company in 2006. When I first started there, we had part of my job was to enter in directions, was
Mhm.
to get it off of MapQuest, I think is
Oh
what we
yeah.
were using, and type in the directions and email them to the driver or call them over the phone because a lot of times they couldn't even fully access their email. Some of them had, I think Blackberries were around right about then, so
Yep.
some of them could view it, but most of them couldn't. So you used to have them in the system ready to go. So when they got close to the shipper, you'd call them and you'd give them directions and basically hold their hand getting into the shipper or receiver.
I think the funniest one was we had a place. This was a couple of years later. We had a place that we went to for a different company. That the directions in where you got off the interstate is in Louisiana. You got off the interstate, they would tell you go west, but then it would tell you go approximately 3.3 miles. You'll see a little blue house with a white fence that ends at a big tree and turn right on that road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
I
mean, the
remember that.
directions, it was the most like go past 3 flooded fields, turn left. When we got to the factory, it took you right to where you needed to go. We asked the
Yeah.
guard, and he's like, "Oh, that house is actually owned by this factory. It's for the plant manager. So we have to maintain all the colors so that everybody knows how to get in here."
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Did you ever get your Atlas out? The big Atlas book?
I don't as much anymore doing local, but even when I was over the road, every 2 to 3 years I get a new Atlas motor carriers, Rand
Yeah.
McNally motor carriers road Atlas,
Yep.
the laminated binder, and I'd have
My,
that
yep.
manually go
We
through and make
always
sure.
had one in our car going on trips, even going
Hmm.
like just to the next town over. My dad would be like, get the Atlas out. And I used to hate it. I would
Oh yeah.
dread it. I get
Yep,
sick reading in the car, and then he'd have me going through the atlas and flipping
Yeah.
pages. And I remember my parents getting into fights when we drive down to Florida for vacation over which way to go and stop and ask for directions. No, I'm not stopping and
No,
asking
heck
for
no.
directions.
Exactly.
with us being over the road, we would basically, anytime we went to a new state, we would stop at a truck stop. You'd go
Yeah.
on the map, the map wheel, and you'd actually go through and get like all the major cities
Mhm.
That's
maps that
right.
would
That's right.
unfold in
That's
such a
true.
weird man. Every one seemed to unfold differently. Then that
Yep.
way you'd have like, okay, if I'm going into Detroit, well, you get the Detroit city map out, and then
We
you'd
got to
have to
get there.
Yeah,
figure out, okay, where's the road I'm going to? This is the road. Okay, so it's
that's
somewhere
right.
around here.
Yep.
Yep.
I want to skip forward a little bit in your out of your childhood. I read that you had served in the Marine Corps.
I did.
Appreciate your service, even though I'm from a Navy family. You know how that goes with Navy and Marines. But
Hey, everybody needs a taxi driver sometime,
that's right. That's right.
and we
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. My grandfather was E9 chief on the forestall, and he would always talk about, yeah, we had to carry the Marines. That's all, and it was always something there. So I always joke about that. But we appreciate your service. So
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
in the communication systems. How did it shape you, and did any of that translate over to trucking?
I went in as they were transitioning, they were combining two different fields as the very first class to go through under the new designator for the field. It showed me something that I carry to this day. It's not implementing technology to have it, implementing technology intelligently. It showed me how, like, we were moving to all digital telephony, a whole digital telephone network, programming, and all kinds of stuff. But the Marine Corps was taking proven systems and very slowly and intentionally making sure they worked correctly before they
Right.
implemented it.
Yeah.
And it meant a lot of the issues that some of the other branches had as they transitioned to the new gear. Well, at that time it was new gear for the Marine Corps, but as they transitioned over to the new stuff, they were having more issues than the Marine Corps was, and it was because the Marine Corps was being very slow and deliberate to make sure they actually did it right. And they weren't forcing technology where it didn't need to be. If you had a system that worked already and it could work with the new stuff, you don't need to upgrade just because, well, let's get all the shiny new toys. The Marine Corps is like, no, it still works. We were in the schoolhouse and we had a brand new stack of, we call them a rack of switching gear. I can't remember how much they said it was a couple $1,000,000. And right next to it, they're like, and this is how you plug in this radio from Vietnam to make it talk on this. So we had a Vietnam era radio using D-cell batteries, and we were trying to learn how to use it to communicate through the radio on a digital telephone system. It's like, this is the Marine Corps. The radio still works. The new stuff will get further, but the radio still works. So we're going to keep using the radio. Yeah, I got out of the Marine Corps and had to make a quick pivot into a different field. Marine Corps didn't want me, some of the stuff I did, they didn't want me doing in the civilian field unless I contracted. I was like, well, you have a school that right here on base, they had an office to do truck driving. I'm like, well, I know that industry. I grew up around it. So I'll go into that real quick. And yeah, it was left there, went to Florida for the training, went to TMC, and TMC taught me flatbed.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How you got into flatbed and step deck and heavy haul. I see you have a lot of experience in that. The drivers that I deal with that I've dealt with in the past that have that kind of experience that do open deck freight, it's more of an art form to them. They take pride in their work. It just means more. They have a different mentality. It means something more to be that kind of a truck driver.
I trained for a while, and I used to tell the students that one of the things about doing flatbed is most of the time your work is on display. So how you chain something, how you strap it, how you tarp it, that's on display. People are seeing it. Like, take that into consideration, take some pride. You might not need a strap somewhere, but for your tarp, it might help your tarp ride better. Just go ahead and toss that extra strap. Takes an extra minute of your time. It's not hurting anything.
Yep.
But then the tarp looks good. The tarp looks like it fits right. TMC was strict about the tarp always. They wanted it to look like it was almost painted onto the load.
Yeah, you don't want to look like Griswold going down the road,
Right.
No, they didn't appreciate that. The attention to detail, that's something else. Little things that I learned over the years. My trainer taught me to watch your chain links. Chain links can rotate. Each link leans against the next one. Like if you look over your load and you see your chains are twisted a little bit, it's going to come loose going down the road. Most likely, because it'll want to straighten itself out. Just something little like that. It's like it makes a difference. Plus, going down the road, you can see the sunlight. If the chains are clean, you see the sunlight sparkling off of each link.
Yeah.
That's good. And, and that brings us something that we speak about all the time for a truck driver. And you bring up a good point that I've never even thought about was those extra little details of dress appropriate, walk in, talk to the people at the shipping desk, get a relationship so you can find out about what they offer, make a good impression so they ask for you the next time. But that's a great point that, I've never even thought about especially with the open deck guys, that's you going down the road. They might not be able to see your face, but they can see that truck number, and then they can see the extra time you put into either tarp or strap or chain. I like that. That was a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up.
I went a little bit further than a lot of guys. I always wear a button-down shirt. Most of the time, it's a high vis because doing flatbed almost everywhere you go, they want you to have high vis on. So I got to a point where it's like, hey, instead of putting a vest on, that the vest is going to get caught on stuff, I'll actually get a shirt. I tucked it in. Most of the time, it'd be tucked in. So I left TMC at 13 months with the company. I went to Hunt Transportation out of Omaha, Nebraska. They're a division of Crete. My mom had 10 years at Crete Carrier, and one of the people that was one of her dispatchers right before she left Crete was the recruiter when she started doing training at Newcastle School of Trades. So I was looking to move to something bigger than TMC, and they gave a exemption. Usually they wanted 2 years experience. They gave an exemption because they knew mom was a good driver and she wouldn't have
You're a legacy.
That's
yeah.
right.
So I went to
Exactly.
Hunt, which was a funny story in and of itself. I was sitting in orientation, and Dwayne Ackley, the owner, came in just to introduce himself and mostly just to talk to me because he remembered me when I was an 8-year-old kid running around the office, annoying everybody.
That's
Yeah.
And
awesome.
yeah, so it's like being a part of the Ackley family was coming back, and then everybody else looking at me like, "You're a new hire." It's like, yeah, but I've been here before. I've been to Lincoln. I've been to the different terminals.
You
Uh-huh.
actually got more seniority in them. You just wasn't on the payroll.
Yeah, and then Hunt, I learned how to do RGN, agricultural equipment.
Talk about that a little bit. So, like, there are a lot of guys who are just getting into flatbed and step deck who are like, especially guys I used to work with when they were first getting started, they'd be like, we want the permitted loads, we want the bigger loads, we don't want to wait, we want to, we want to do the big work, the meaningful work when what they said, and they had to buy their time. Talk about the difference in just, doing flatbed and step deck versus heavy haul RGN low boy work, what it takes to move that kind of freight. And you can't rush it, right? And you can't just jump into it. You got to have some good experience. You got to take your time working your way up.
Don't hurry into it. It's not something you want to rush into. You want to take your time. You want to have good mentors. Hunt gave me a couple drivers, one of them which was Big Mike. He had 40, I think he was 43 or 44 years of heavy haul. And I mean, he had gone up to dual lane stuff and push trucks and all kinds of stuff. And he was just back end of his career. He wanted to do something a little bit easier. So he came along. Anytime I had a question, he was there. Um, he was the first one that he really drilled into me like, your permits are your life. You have to make sure permits, you scour every little detail. Make sure the license plate number is correct, VIN number is correct, measure all your axle spacings. Loads have to be secured very well. Make sure your routing, you understand your routing. If you need, look over your provisions, operate according to the permit.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of drivers will look at it and be like, well, I'm only 10 foot wide. I don't need to do, for instance, Ohio, they want you to do 55 if you're under a permit. Well, I don't need to do that. It's like, you don't need to, but the permit says to, and they will pull you over.
Yeah, know your playbook, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like,
Exactly.
playing appropriately. I mean, that's know your routing, and guys didn't take that seriously, and
And,
I've seen guys get really screwed and
oh,
just
yeah.
just by not following a simple direction.
One of my former students wanted to get into it. And I told him, like, the bigger you go, take your time with the small stuff and learn how to trip plan, learn how to plan out your day, your route. Look at it on a map. Now we have Google Maps. Look at it on Google Maps. See where you might have turns where they might be a little bit tight, or you might not understand an intersection the night before, but plan out the next day, because if you develop that habit on smaller loads, as you get moved up and you start doing the big stuff, I topped out at 19 axles, 380,000-pound gross loads.
Mm.
Like, you have to plan out before you release the brakes. Where is my primary point that I'd like to get to today? And where are some backups just in case I can't get that far? Where are some turns that I might have trouble with? There's a lot more that goes into a move like that.
And you now teach securement, correct?
I'm now the president of Flatbed Safety Securement Group. I don't
Okay.
do the social media side of it. That is run by Chris Wetzel,
So what is the Flatbed Safety Securement Group?
so it is a Facebook page originally started by Dan Shipley. We are a group of flatbed drivers that we are mentoring new drivers. There's no stupid question. We actually are up there very intentionally running the Facebook page to teach load securement, to teach good practices, to impart, to pass on the knowledge of flatbed, because as we're finding out in the industry, the country's finding out, there's not a mandate to train drivers on flatbed.
There's not, and there's so many carriers that are just counting on drivers' previous experience. They're seeing, okay, yes, that's a flatbed company. So if he says he did work, I
Yep.
guess he did, and then we're bringing him on.
The reason Dan Shipley actually started the Facebook page was he worked for a company that bought a flatbed. They were mostly a dump truck company and dumps. They bought a flatbed to do some freight, And they just told him to figure it out. Flatbed isn't a job you can just figure out. You have to know what
No.
you're doing. So I looked up, I actually searched out to see if there's a page like that after I got pulled into a scale house to help another driver secure a load. I believe it was October 2020. I pulled across the scale, local DOT officer that knew me. He had me come around back, and I'm like, I know I'm not, I have like an 8,000 pound load on, 2 skidded coils and a bundle of sheet. I know I'm not overweight. And he just
Mhm.
walked out and he's like, hey, I know your securement's always good and you know what you're doing. There's a driver over there. I can't tell him how to fix his load, but he has
Mm,
no idea about load securement. Can you help him? There was a language barrier, but beyond that, he really didn't understand anything about flatbed, about how to strap, how to secure a load, how to chain a load. He didn't know how to use some of his equipment. So,
He could have killed somebody.
yeah,
yeah, easily. Yep.
luckily he had a load of shingles on, but like the shingles were coming apart because he didn't have them strapped right. And it's like, that's when it was like, okay, there needs to be a page or a group or something because he asked me if I could help him more. And it's like, well, I can't. I actually was going to be getting a student the next week with the company I was working for then. It's like, I can't be a trainer to 2 people at one time. And
Right.
I'm not always, I don't know where you're going. There's a lot more to it. I looked up on Facebook, so I'm like, there's got to be a group for it, and it was right at the beginning of the of Flatbed Safety Securement Group (FSSG). It was right after Dan had actually started the page, so it's like this is where my knowledge can come into play. Other drivers' knowledge can come into play because I was taught load securement largely by Big Mike and some of the other guys at Hunt that brought me
Mhm.
under their wing. I wasn't afraid to ask questions, to call them and bug them and pick their brain, but they were willing to hand that knowledge down. And looking around the industry, I saw there was a gap in that old knowledge being handed down. Drivers were retiring so quickly
Yeah.
that
Well,
knowledge wasn't getting handed down.
Well, and it sounds like this group not to just be a Facebook group, but
mhm,
have a group that goes around to carriers and offers training
mhm.
sessions, essentially continuing education sessions.
Yeah, because it only helped the insurance.
We are working right now with Ron Slee from Learning Without Scars. It's an online school, but we are actually putting together a course that'll eventually fully encompass. Right now, we're working on getting the introduction to flatbed, which is literally breaking down like these are the different types of flatbeds, these are the uses for them.
You wrote a book about that, correct?
Yep, that is our we call it the ITF, the Introduction to Flatbed. Like I said, we're working with Ron Slee, Learning Without Scars, to get that actually published, get it accredited, and release it to the public. But that is just our introduction. We want to actually eventually go through and actually have a full course where a driver has a question, they have an answer. There's not just, we'll open the
Mhm.
book. No, this is actually going to be pictures. This is going to be tips, tricks, hints, little things that drivers that have 20, 30, 40 years of experience they've put into this so that you don't have to learn that trick the hard way or learn how to do something an easier way from trial and error. You actually can just open the book. Hey, this works. This is better. I had an example is when I hauled combines, oversized loads. One of our old timers asked me why I was pulling 4 chains out for the combine. I'm like, well, you need a chain at each corner, and we usually did 2 chains on each corner. He's like, no, the way this chain hooks in there, drag one 20-foot chain out for each side. You can hook it up and have four binders per chain, and you have plenty of slack between each point where it hooks onto the machine. I was like, I tried it, and I'm like, that's perfect. It's easy. I'm not dragging four 20-foot chains out. I'm not having
Yeah.
to deal with having
Mhm.
15 foot of extra chain because all the chain is secured, but it's still loose, so it counts as 4 individual securement items. It's like, well, if he hadn't told me that, I'd still be out dragging chains.
Well, and if you haven't listened either, like, I mean, some of this, especially with guys like yourself who have been in it for so long, I'm sure ego comes into play, right? It's just like, you're not
Yeah,
going to tell me what to do. I know what I'm
Right.
doing. Thank you very much.
Well, it's twofold, right? It's ego, but then I've noticed too, especially with owner operators, the industry has changed to where it's me, me, me. I'm not worried about you, you. And of course, back when you were with your mom, truckers helped each other. It was, hey, you need this. Hey, I'll help you. I've got it. We'll share it. We'll do whatever. Now it's such a competition that, hey, I'm afraid if I give, this driver some information, he's going to come in and take where I'm at. So you have been blessed of being around the right people that will share because I notice with drivers now that information does not share like it should be and pass down knowledge. My one thing I've said this probably a million times, need to get a shirt made for it. If you don't have a brother, now a mother, a cousin, father that's drove, grandfather, you don't get that information. And how important that you show how important it is to not only listen, but then to give back, and so that's a great thing. I wish more truck drivers would give, and I wish more would listen and take the advice. Because, like I said, you learn something. It saves you back, saves you time. I mean, it's a win-win in the long run.
Flatbed especially. Trucking is a learned through blood, but flatbed, the rules that govern flatbed and load securement is truly, these are rules, these are lessons, these are laws that were learned through blood. People
Mm.
not securing a load correctly and that load going through a cab or falling off of a trailer and landing on a car, those have all been the rules that have been adapted and adopted for load securement. So you can't, load securement it's screwing that up, screwing up load securement, not securing something right. It comes off the trailer, it kills somebody. That's where the rules came from. We don't have
Yeah.
an excuse in this day and age, especially. We don't have an excuse to not have that knowledge passed down.
For listeners, maybe van guys that are looking into the flatbed that maybe going to do it on their own as an owner operator, are there certain rules? And I know there are, but are there certain rules maybe you can go into a little bit? Like if you're hauling a piece of equipment, how many chains? Where does it have to go through the machine at? Or if you're hauling lumber, is it so many straps per foot? Can you go into that a little bit? Just simple stuff, nothing too complex, just to kind of show, some of the rules that you have to abide by.
If you're hauling anything like lumber, anything long, it's 2 load securement devices in the first 10 foot, and then 1 additional device for every 10 foot thereafter. Basically, if you have a 33-foot long load, you're going to need 2 in the first 10, and then you'll need 2 more straps after that. So you'll have 4 total straps on the load. But it also, you have to calculate your weight. Your load securement has to also match at least half of the weight of the load. For machinery, if it rolls, it's over 10,000 pounds. You have to have one. Unfortunately, it has to be direct tie. There's a difference. Indirect is the securement device anchors on one side of the trailer, goes over or through the load to the other side of the trailer. That is indirect. Direct goes directly from, as it says, direct from the machine or load to the trailer. It doesn't go to
Okay.
the other side.
Okay.
When you do direct, it's reduced by half of the weakest items rating. You can have a chain that's good for 20,000 pounds. If your anchor device is only good for 6,000, you're only going to get 6,000 pounds, then you cut that in half. Again, going into flatbed, don't just rush into oversize. Get to a point where you can look at a machine, you understand the weight, and you know right off the top of your head, I need this number of chains, and I need this number in the back, this number in the front. They're going to pull this way, that way. You know that without having to think about it. But for your first couple of years, you're going to be thinking about it.
Well, and two, I would assume this is true. You tell me if I'm wrong. Your actions speak louder than you going and talking to somebody about wanting to try something new. I would, if your bosses see that you've got the idea figured up of the straps, you don't have to ask somebody, well, how many more chains? If you know where to hook up at, they're going to see that and then come to you and go, hey, we've got this opportunity at this, because I'm pretty sure most of these smaller trucking companies that do flatbed, they're not teaching anything of what you just said. They're not getting into the nitty bit of weight. They're just saying, hey, you need this amount of change. They're not explaining, okay, well, hey, you need to put this extra on. So if you learn that and you do that, it will get noticed. I'm pretty sure, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, it will. And for the companies and company owners or fleet managers out there, especially for the drivers as well, ask. Just ask. Um, Never be afraid to ask,
Hmm.
because that's how you learn.
Right.
If you're securing something, you haven't hauled this before. The first time I hauled a wheeled excavator, I'd hauled a dozen tracked excavators. I knew exactly what to do with those, but I hauled a wheeled excavator, and I had to walk over. There's another driver there with me, and I was like, "So, you'd worked on a dedicated cat account for like 30 years. You've hauled a dozen of these." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "How would you secure this? Because this is not like a tracked excavator. This is a whole different game." And he told me how, and then he's like, "But here's what you do. There's a blade. Secure here. Go over the blade. You have to secure the blade down." Like, oh, so that does 2 points. It secures the load, but it also secures the blade at one go. Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking I was going to put a chain just for the blade. Then there's little things. You have your FMCSA green book of knowledge of everything. But for instance, Pennsylvania has a state law. If you have a hydraulic boom, like on a telehandler or like a man lift, like a JLG man lift,
Mhm.
you have to put a chain over that boom. Pennsylvania has a state law that they don't recognize straps on those.
Mhm.
If you're hauling an excavator, the arm has to have a chain on it. It can't have a strap. If a company tells the driver just look at what the book says, that's not good enough. You have to have that additional knowledge of, hey, some states have weird little laws like that the state enforces that law.
I want to get into driver turnover before we close out a little bit. It's a big problem. There's definitely some scenarios out there where yes, you need to run quickly. But most of the time it's just they haven't had enough time to feel each other out. They're listening to other drivers out there who are coming home with 7 grand a week apparently, and they want to get on to the next best thing, and they don't realize that a lot of times those drivers that they hear from that are maybe making 7 grand a week or close to that or whatever, they've been with that company for 10 years. They've made their way into a good customer where they're not letting you into that good customer just because you sign on with them. That person's built a reputation and put in their time, and now they're reaping the benefits of that. I looked at your profile. You've been with companies for several years at a time. Speak to that a little bit about why that's important and how that's made a difference in your success.
With flatbed, van not so much, but flatbed is very much seasonal. You can make really good money at a company over a year, but you can't come in there and just make good money in that first month. You might come in at a time when the season is slow. It's their customer base, their primary customers are all slow this time at one point in time of the year. Give them a year. If you can at all afford it, give them a year. Find out what freight is like for that full year. Let them develop a relationship with you, knowing how you run, knowing what you like to run. Like I stayed at Hunt for a month short of 5 years. My dispatcher knew I loved pulling combines. So anytime I was near Grand Island, Nebraska, or I was near East Moline, Illinois, he'd send me up to get combines because some of the drivers didn't like hauling them. So
Hmm.
they would get the other loads. But give it a year, settle into the company, let them learn who you are, learn how you like to drive, and that'll become more profitable for you. In the long run, that'll be more profitable. Don't expect the big money off the bat. My
Right.
first year driving at
Well said.
TMC, I didn't make great money. My first year at Hunt, I made better money. It wasn't great. My second year, I made considerably more because I knew how to play the system with going home during factory shutdowns when we were transitioning different seasons. Because Hunt was all almost at the time, they were almost all John Deere. John Deere and Case New Holland, that was their big clientele. Well, just like farmers have seasons, they have seasons.
Hmm.
After that first year, I knew how their freight worked. I understood when to go home, when to be out. You build the relationship even with the people in the office. I could talk to Debbie who worked in the office, and she could like kind of like let me know like there's little things here, like we got this big contract coming up. It's you could probably be out for 6 or 7 weeks straight just pulling stuff dedicated almost from Grand Island, Nebraska to Washington to Seattle, Washington for export. They're going to put those trucks round trip, and I'm paid empty miles just like I am loaded. So if I can get on that, that's the one to get on. So then you go over and talk to dispatch. Hey, you have all these combines that need to go from here to Washington. Just put me on that dedicated.
Well, and they know you, right? You've been on with them for a year. They know
Yep.
they can count on you. They don't need to worry about you taking off Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after you've just had off the weekend. They know they can rely on you for their customer, and they're going to say, "Hey, we want Daniel on this freight that right now. This is his time. He's proved to us that he can be, that he's responsible, that he's dresses well,
He
that
represents the
he
company
shows
well.
up with his shirt tucked in.
Mhm.
Let's reward him." And it's, you don't get, you gotta work just like in anything else. You don't
That's
come
right.
in at the top in most cases unless you've been with a company for 5, 7, 10 years. They know who you are. They know that
Mhm.
they know like your reputation, and they want you for a specific situation, but you've had to still put in your time somewhere to get to that point, right?
I'll use this as an example. Your reputation can be built in a year and allow you to skip over drivers that might have more time with the company.
Yeah.
When I was at Miller Transfer, I kind of became known for being inquisitive. I was constantly calling other drivers, asking them questions. I was working with Miller has a massive amount of different trailers. Well, we had one trailer. It's called a multi-max. Only one driver had really used it. They sent me out to Wisconsin. I looked at a video on how to use it. I got it set up about right. I called him probably 5 or 6 times about like how do you get this set up to pull it. The trailer steers itself. It's a cutting edge trailer. It's also $600,000-700,000 trailer that I didn't want to scratch on its second load. And
Good idea.
so I was going out to Wisconsin empty to get a load, a building that was going to be 16 foot wide. So I called him up and I bugged him. Oh gosh, from when I left Ohio to Wisconsin to Oshkosh, I probably called him 14 or 15 times. Any little question that I thought of about like, how does this work? How does that work? How should I do this? I got out to Wisconsin. I got the trailers. I was getting the trailer set up to load because it stretches out as a 70-foot long. I had to stretch it to 70 foot long on the deck.
Wow.
And I'm like bugging him and bugging him and bugging him. I get that building out to, you know, probably another dozen calls on the trip out to Washington State. They were going to Seattle, Washington with this building. Get out there, deliver it. I'm on my way back. Trailers all put together. I'm on the way back. I stopped by North Bend, Washington, the TA. I'm leaving after getting some fuel. And my dispatcher calls me. He's like, hey, that customer was so impressed with you. They want you to do all 11 of their buildings. You're just going to go round trip. It's a week. It's 3 days, 3.5 days back to Wisconsin. You'll
Mhm.
move a building out of their production facility, a completed building. You'll move it out, stage it in the lot, load your building, and then you come back to Washington State, and you'll just do that round trip 11 times. I'm thinking like, that's not. Why would I get that? That's for a senior driver. And they're like, look, the customer liked the fact that you asked them questions,
Mhm.
you helped them to
Mhm.
figure out how to load the buildings because they weren't sure how to load them. You explained to them about the building doesn't sit square on the trailer. You walked them through how to do stuff, but they also saw how you called other people to make sure you knew what you were doing with the trailer.
You went over and above. You
That's
didn't
right.
just deliver the load. It truly was, you made it your career essentially. It wasn't just a
Mhm.
job. There's
Yeah.
a
Right.
difference. You went over and above for that customer. You showed them, every step of the way on how to set it up. I mean, you set yourself apart from the competition.
The last two buildings I didn't move. We got delayed a little bit. I had vacation. Interestingly enough, my wife and I went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, to a
Mm.
resort down there for 2 weeks. When I left, I actually made a video for the driver that's going to come in and replace me because I understood, at this point, I'm the only driver that's pulled this trailer that's got a
Mm.
lot of experience with it in our company. I've dealt with an airbag going bad on it and getting that fixed, and I've I know how the trailer works. I know its little quirks, the weird little things that they don't have in manuals. So I made a video and I put it on YouTube with you can do a restricted link and sent it to the driver that's going to replace me so that I walked him through every little thing about the trailer, all its quirks, all its little things. It's that way when he came in, he knew this is how I set this trailer up. This is how it works. This is what you do with it. And I told him, like, I won't be out of the country when you load the next building. I'll still be in the U.S., but I don't want to leave you high and dry. That driver went and, I mean, he did really well with the 2 loads he did for me. He did great. And he said a lot of it came down to he didn't have to worry about figuring things out. He could call me and get information. But I had laid so much of it out for him that it was like a book of for the trailer.
Yeah. Being a team player is a lost art form.
It is. And a lot of industries, not only this one. You're exactly right.
I will say this, I am not perfect. I don't know everything about the industry. I'm still learning a lot. But I'm not afraid to ask, and I'm not afraid to help somebody else even step above me, go over me and their skill level. One of the drivers that I got to Miller transfer, he was a great driver, younger guy. He did very well working at Miller. He called me and he called me one day. He's like, man, I just passed this big load, way bigger than what Miller can do, like just massive stuff. He's like, I really would like to, one day I'd like to work like for like a company like Mammoth. They do like 1,000,000-pound loads, 500,000-pound loads, all this huge stuff all over the world. I'm like, you've got the time, man. You've got the experience. I said, I can't guarantee it, but I know a couple people that work over there. I can give them a call, see if I can get you a job there. And because he's willing to ask questions, he's built that trust with me and with Miller. But now I got him a job at Mammoth, and he's over there and he's asking questions. Every now and then when I talk to him, he's like,
that's awesome.
Dude, I ask so many questions every day. I got a book of questions that I want asked and a book of answers for the questions that I've already asked. It's like, that's the way to do it.
Good.
And he's now doing stuff I couldn't imagine doing some of the stuff he does. But it's like, hey, I helped him get to one plateau and then I helped him step to the next one. It's more than I want to do.
What's one of the craziest things that you've hauled?
Ooh, the 2 craziest things I hauled, one I can't talk about, but the other one is I hauled components for the USS Doris Miller nuclear aircraft carrier.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I hauled some of the compartments for it that were actually transported. We had to load them. We loaded them. We couldn't figure out how they worked, and then we realized they were all upside down. So they ship them upside down. So we were looking at them, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's... And we had to get them from Michigan down to Newport News, and then I moved some pieces on site. I got to see like part of the carrier, the fabrication building for the modules.
What's your heaviest load you've ever hauled?
My heaviest was a chunk of iron. I don't know. I actually don't know what it really was. It was, I grossed 380,000 pounds.
Wow.
It was a 250,000 pound extrusion press base. It went to the aluminum mill in, I think it's Russellville, Kentucky. There's an aluminum facility up there. They were adding another line, and I hauled, it was just, as far as I could see, it was just the big metal base that had some cool cuts in it. But that was 19 axles on the ground, 380,000 pound gross, 146 foot long.
Wow.
Wow.
And where'd you pick that up?
The Port of Savannah. I actually
So
had
you had to take it from Savannah up through the mountains up to Russellville.
Yep. And
What
they
was
routed
that like
us.
pulling that thing uphill?
Yeah, because truck drivers all the time complain, even the ones that live in North Carolina. I don't want to go through the mountains, and they're pulling the drive in. So I can only that's amazing. That's no big deal. That's just 380,000 pounds through the mountain. That's awesome.
So we had an adventure with that. They routed us up 75. We hit Holiday, so we had to stop in oh gosh, it took us 5 days to get loaded in Savannah. We drove one day. It took 6 hours to go from Savannah to Valdosta, Georgia. To give you an idea of the weight, it was I had been on the interstate for 7 miles before I finally hit 55 miles an hour.
Wow.
7 miles to get to 55.
And what about slowing that thing down?
It was actually quicker slowing down. Again, experience. Gain your experience. When I hit the brakes with a load that big with a 19 axle trailer, there's like a 2-second delay before my trailer brakes catch because it's got all those valves on the back 15 axles. It has to go through and move all that air back there. So the truck will be catching, but the trailer, it takes time for all those brake chambers to actually extend, to fill with air. So once they do catch, they work pretty well. But we got up into Tennessee, their computer system that routed us. We had to take an overpass. The interstate, they thought the interstate was closed underneath, and it was actually the overpass that was closed. So they routed us around all these little side roads. I get to the overpass where I'm supposed to go over the closed interstate, and we're on the wrong level. So then it took us 3-4 hours working with the state to finally figure out all we need to do is go back one exit. I guess it'd be east on 24, hop off there where I had got off to take the back roads, and then just left back on and continue on up the interstate. That was an eye-opening experience of really having to be very detailed on trip planning, because there were multiple turns where we came up and we had to make sure my pilot cars that were escorting me were phenomenal. They worked with me to make sure I knew the different routes that we were taking, because they did it all the time. But the amount of fuel you burn doing that, I thought I knew how to calculate my fuel use, and it was like, man, I figured I'd be making 1.5 miles to 2 miles per gallon, and I'm making 1.2 miles per gallon on fuel. And
oh my God.
I don't mind it.
I was when we went up Mount Eagle, I was at 6 miles per hour coming up Mount Eagle.
Golly.
So then we got to the top, and they took us on a side road to come off of Mount Eagle. We didn't go down Mount Eagle. We had to take side roads. It's so there was a lot to it, but it was an experience. I think that was only the second or third load on that trailer. It was a Faymonville Highway Max 3. Believe they said $4.5 million trailer.
Wow.
So it's I'm being trusted with this. I had actually got the trailer brand new off the dock, but we didn't get all the components shipped with it. I brought it in from Baltimore to our yard, and I'm like, man, one day I'm going to step up to be able to pull this with a load on it. And there I was pulling it, and I'm like, man, don't scratch the trailer, don't scratch the trailer, don't scratch the new trailer. It is shiny and new. Don't scratch the new trailer.
I bet. Before we wrapped up, if you wanted to plug your Facebook page or any other way that people can contact you about securement, if they have questions, shout that out, because we definitely want you to get some publicity for this, because you're doing an awesome job. I know Jon does, so we appreciate what you're doing for the flatbedders, because there's not a lot of people out there doing that. So definitely reach out your Facebook page and any other socials or anything where people can reach you.
So yeah, if you're needing any information, help, even if you want to learn, we have brokers even on our Facebook page. You can go to Flatbed Safety Securement Group on Facebook. For me, myself, I'm Daniel Kinsman. I've got a Facebook page. I usually try to direct people to Flatbed Safety Securement Group. You'll get more answers. You'll get quicker help there. I don't monitor Facebook as much, but I am kind of everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the social media platforms. LinkedIn is the only place you won't see a picture of my unique mug. Bald Man Club. Bald and Bearded Club.
BMC, we're all members. That's right.
That's
yeah.
If you're in the trucking industry, you're going to go bald.
Yeah. Two things are going to happen. You're going to go bald, and you're going to wind up with a beard. You're probably also going to like coffee. It just is the way it is. But yeah, I'm around all the time, and I'm always open to answer questions. It might take me a minute to get back to you, so don't try and ask an important one quickly. But I try to answer as many questions as I can when people have them.
Great. Say that Facebook page one more time.
It is Flatbed Safety Securement Group.
Okay, perfect. Look it up. Daniel, this is why we do Drivers First, to spotlight skill, discipline, and drivers who truly treat this like a profession and take pride in what in their work. It's not about ego, right? It's about responsibility. So it's great. We really appreciate you coming on the show. Justin, you want to give a shout out to our sponsors real quick before we close out?
Of course, this episode is brought to you by Gray Cross, graycross.org. It's a nonprofit dedicated to helping trucking families during a time of crisis, medical emergencies, financial hardships, unexpected life events. If you're a driver and you lose your life on the road, Gray Cross is there to help your families get through that tough time. So if you can donate $5, a dollar, $10, $20, please do so. Again, you go to graycross.org. And then, of course, our other sponsor that helps us out every day is Ready App. That's ready-app.com. It's the driver onboarding and verification platform built for modern trucking. Ready App gives drivers one secure verified profile that they can apply and use at multiple carriers. It's all in one place. We got a lot of big things going on there that we'll be talking about in the future. But go in, create your profile. It takes you 20 minutes, and then you never have to do a profile or a DOT application again.
And we really appreciate you taking the time, Daniel. Drive safe out there, and looking forward to seeing where your Facebook page takes you. I think you're really doing some great things, and I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right, well, drive safe, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Drivers First.